Artificial intelligence is reshaping the way electric companies serve their customers, operate the grid, and plan for the future. On today's show, we're joined by two leaders who are right in the middle of that transformation. Michelle Ferrara, Chief Information Officer at Arizona Public Service, and Karthik Moorthy, Chief Growth Officer at Bidgely, who will discuss what sparked APS's move into AI, how they're building the culture and partnerships needed to scale it, and what lessons other electric companies can take from their journey. Michelle and Karthik, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
And let's start with you, Michelle. What was the catalyst for APS to start using AI, and what are APS's key areas of focus?
I'm sure I speak for many utility peers. We're all facing a lot of similar challenges. We're facing a period of unprecedented growth, which is amazing for us, but a lot different than the last 10 years. We still have our normal operational reliability challenges, customer experience improvements, and affordability that we want to tackle. And we're relying on that at a time where we're asking all of our employees to do more and to help us meet all these demands. So very much like everyone else, if there are opportunities that we can exploit with AI to internally help the productivity of our employees, which ultimately leads to better results for our customers and overall grid reliability, that's something we want to capitalize on. And so we realized very early on we're being asked to do more with less in a time that is rapid growth and a lot of change. And how can we use all the tools in our toolbox to meet that demand?
And are there any challenges that you've faced on this AI journey, and how are you and your team addressing that?
It's with excitement and with challenges. I would say the first one that we had was we had a lot of interest and excitement, just like every other company around AI, but we weren't really organized and mobilizing ourselves for execution at scale. We were doing a lot of pilots, doing a lot of learning, but not necessarily getting the execution velocity to get out of pilot mode and get in solutions into production. So one of the first things that we did is we did roll out an enterprise AI strategy. Even though I'm the CIO, it is business and IT led. We put a central AI office together in order to mobilize that strategy. And it has three key tenets. One is an operating and governance model. The second part we call modernizing our digital core. I like to explain it as the place where all the real work happens, where the data, technology, and the solutions come together. And ultimately, the third pillar of our strategy is what we call our AI enabled business, which we see as the most important part. And it actually touches on one of the bigger challenges. We look at this as more of a people transformation challenge than a technology implementation. And how do we get our organization educated, mobilized, and part of this journey? And that's been one of our biggest challenge areas and an area that we continue to focus on.
And Karthik, from your perspective, how's the AI landscape shifting globally in the energy world? It seems like there's a race to adopt AI, and it's only accelerating.
There is no sector or company which is immune of this, right? And I'm saying this in a good way because especially in the utility sector, you kind of sit on both sides. AI is powered by energy, and the outcome of it has to be consumed as well because utilities need to do more with less, like Michelle said. And to do more with less, one of the big things AI provides across sectors, and especially in utility, is productivity and efficiency and doing things right. The second and most important thing is personalization. Utilities engage with consumers, so understanding consumers, how to do things which all the way from rates to programs, program design. AI offers that capability. And the last part, and one of the most important thing from a US context as well, is grid flexibility and reliability, especially in a world with supply chain constraints. So while we power the AI revolution as a sector, how do we also reap the benefits of it is what I'm seeing across. And different companies are in different stages of maturity from a utility side. But coming from the partner side, I think I'm excited to see the innovation which is coming through to kind of help and partner with utilities in doing that. And I want to break that into a few different categories. So starting with, you have the infrastructure, the basic meter infrastructure, the hardware, and there's a lot of machine learning model innovations and moving from AMI 1.0 to 2.0 happening. So there is that, and investments are going into it.
And when you say AMI, you're talking about smart meters and those newer advanced metering technologies, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about both 1.0 and 2.0. There's also technology infrastructure because the heart of this transformation is technology driven. And like Michelle said, it needs to kind of weave into businesses, AI enabled businesses, but it starts with the right technology going in. So you have the cloud providers like Amazon, Google, and also the data platform providers like Snowflake and Databricks, providing a lot of capability at an infrastructure level, at an agent level, at a chat level, which are available to utilities. And then there is the data itself, which utilities have, like AMI 1.0 data. It's no secret that you need to unlock value from that. There is so much latent potential. So I say utilities investing in that. And then all the applications, so all the way from call center to speech to text to automation to grid planning and flexibility. But to put this all together, we kind of see this as how do you leverage the best of breed horizontal capabilities, which is cross-cutting across industries like ChatGPT, Amazon, Databricks, and how do you bring utility-specific stuff, which is machine learning models to unlock AMI data, machine learning models to identify infrastructure and upgrades and prevent wildfires. So a combination of this, when done right, can unlock significant value and potential, all the way from addressing LMI to infrastructure and flexibility.
And how do you see the energy transition that's underway to meet this need really driving economic development? You talked about benefits broadly, but when communities are attracting data centers, there's job creation, there's affordability considerations. It seems like there's a lot of opportunities there.
Absolutely. There is also an increase in distributed energy resources which are happening. So all generation doesn't come just from the utility companies. You have batteries and solars increasing their penetration. You have virtual power plants coming through with all of these connected devices. So in this world, how do you look at practical challenges like affordability, right? So you need to attract investments for large scale data centers. You need to kind of do it in places while funneling innovation for these distributed energy resources. So you have economic job creation happening. And LMI for me is, you can see this in few different ways. First is identifying communities or places or parts of the grid where investments need to go. Second is how do you attract these investments and create more jobs and increase economic opportunity in these places. Third, which is in the utilities normal business, how you're leveraging AI and productivity to optimize cost and efficiency so that rates remain affordable to communities where it's extremely sensitive. So this flywheel needs to happen between being attractive, being forthcoming with technology to adopt the new ways of generation, but also provide job creation and economic opportunities.
And you touched on this a little bit already, Michelle, but when APS decided to move forward with adopting technologies and you had to evaluate how to organize yourselves at teams, I imagine that needed a decent amount of executive buy-in and executive strategy to really get you going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it was one of our first dilemmas. We knew we wanted to do more. We wanted to execute, as I mentioned, with more velocity. But there's a lot of debate, and we even heard it at the summit around where should this sit? Who should own this? I'm very blessed that our organization felt like it belonged and it was positioned to be in the CIO organization. I think there was a couple reasons for that and the way that we did that. One, I think we're looking way ahead, and we think that long term, while AI is absolutely a transformational technology, we think it will become ubiquitous enough to where it starts to become another technology tool in the toolbox, just like other software solutions that we leverage. And we didn't want to kind of bounce around confusing operating models, if that makes sense. The other thing I would say is in the CIO role, as you can imagine, we have more demand and appetite for AI solutions than we could possibly fulfill. And so there's a prioritization element to where do we spend our time, our resources, human and financial, to get the biggest benefit for APS. The CIO role is very accustomed to prioritizing horizontally across various business units. So we felt that was a natural fit. But I want to make sure that I don't describe myself as the owner of AI, because I think this is way beyond all of us. I like to describe myself and my organization as the great organizer and aggregator of AI. This is absolutely a business-led transformation with IT being a key enabler. But we do, as the CIO and my director of digital transformation, we do sponsor a centralized AI office. And that AI office has 4 sub-functions. First, what sits atop of it is an executive steerco with all business units being represented. But the actual functions of that office include governance and security. We're a strong believer that governance and delivery go together. It's not something that sits outside. So it's in a central hub. An AI intake and assessment sub-function, a community of practice where we share ideas and education and help to get cross-pollination of all the learnings across the organization. And then the fourth one is exclusively focused on execution and delivery. So all of that sits together in what we call an AI office to bring the whole organization together around our opportunities, challenges, and delivering what's most meaningful to the business.
Would you say that the sense of urgency was equal to the sense of excitement about the potential for these technologies?
If I look at our early journey, our sense of urgency around what I would call internal productivity tools, Copilot, things of that nature were there. I would say the sense of urgency around what I would call more strategic, long lead, complex use cases, some of the types that we're partnering on with other partners and with Bidgely, that was a little more challenging. I think the urgency was there, but there was almost a fear of the unknown and or lack of understanding of how to actually get it done. And so this centralized office has helped with making it manageable, breaking this down into manageable chunks so the urgency can be met with like practical execution steps. And I would say if I looked across the organization, there would be pockets like at the top level leaders, a lot of urgency, a lot of interest, new young interns who were excited about the opportunity, a lot there. But where we really needed to get more focus and adoption was in our middle layers of management, subject matter expertise, the teams that were core to running our utility. And we've really seen a progression with those coming along. So we kind of had it at the top. We had it with the new students coming in because they were learning about this in school. And it was really our really strong middle that we depend on so much that we wanted to get more urgency and adoption around.
And Karthik, a point Michelle made at the top here was just escaping gravity and going from pilots to really operationalizing some of these technologies. How do you and your team help ensure that there is success with these pilots and then taking that next step to really having consistent measurable results?
Yeah, that's a great question. The fundamentals remain the same. If there is good outcome and relevant scalable outcomes, most teams will adopt and grow with it. So even in the AI situation, we start with a clarity on what business value we are delivering. So let me take an example here. If I'm able to understand load shapes and understand what is driving those load shapes, what is driving those peaks and congestion, and if I'm able to say, okay, there are 5 EVs which are charging simultaneously with cooling kicking in this feeder in summertime, hence you should target these neighborhood and these customers with these kind of programs. And here is an incentive because you understand your consumers and their patterns better for the best adoption. That's a strong use case which will resonate with people who look at forecasting, people who look at grid flexibility, people who look at customer engagement and load shaping. Then the easier part is to use AI to deliver this. So our role as Bidgely is provide a layer of data which is indispensable at a level of granularity for it to be democratized with any tool which a utility has. So I'm bringing in the point of architecture. So let's say the business value is established. So there is a sense of excitement saying, this would be amazing if you can deliver this to me. Then comes, okay, how do I do this in a way? Which technologies do I adopt? And who all need to come together to do this? So in our case, we provide the layer of data, which is extremely granular, disaggregated at a feeder and a consumer level by appliance. Then you understand the landscape of the utility. So let's say Copilot is being used. Let's say Oracle infrastructure is being used. How can our data rest and reside so that those infrastructure elements can be used to deliver this outcome without adding additional layers of cost? And then comes the part of the project team to say, okay, this is the most efficient architecture, data, horizontal and vertical AI combination to deliver this outcome. And the pilot kind of proves it out. So you have been efficient with the infrastructure, which has investments which have been made. You are innovating with the latest tools and the best in breed data, and you're delivering an outcome. Scaling becomes automatic. Funding will come because you can see the outcome at a load level, at a consumer level, at a grid level, right? So that was just one example, but I would always start with what business value am I trying to demonstrate. One more example is, let's say, call center. And let's say you're trying to reduce volume or you're trying to educate and keep the associates up to date with what's happening. You can have a machine do a lot of it. It can listen to the call, it can generate a transcript, it can query by itself, it can give what recommendation or suggestions to solve the call quickly and how to avoid a next call. So, which is deep personalization to a consumer level. So, If the intent starts with, let's say, cost reduction, optimization, customer satisfaction, and efficiency, and then we apply AI rather than technology to outcome.
And when you and your team are looking at different use cases for electric companies, do you always have the customer in mind, just knowing how heavily regulated the sector is and how many stakeholders are really focused on what these sort of investments in technologies mean for the end use customers? Is that a piece for you and your team as you're developing these tools?
It's one of the most important things for us. And the way I'm saying this is historically, Bidgely has been, if I was to take a Starbucks analogy, we were getting our beans, we were brewing our coffee, and we were delivering it in our shops, which is one way to sell our technology and our outcomes and solutions. In this world, we are realizing we want our coffee to be everywhere. Basic. So we have taken our beans, which are our machine learning models, we've put them in a jar, and we're deploying it at customer sites. Because what are customers looking at? They don't want a black box. They want a technology which is flexible, detailed, and they want to understand. We can't do all use cases, so we want to give the power of innovation in the hands of utilities, their partners, their teams, their data science folks. So our approach is to meet where the innovation is happening within the infrastructure in which utilities are operating, because there is reluctance to send AMI data outside for security reasons. So how can we be hosted inside a utility in their cloud in a secure fashion in a way that their teams can build capability and innovate and build 100 use cases rather than visually building one or two use cases? So we are taking that approach where it is more scalable, it is more democratized, it is more, I would say, explainable, which is a very important part of AI and how responsible AI is done.
So in this case, it wouldn't be Michelle and her team only acquiring these specific tools to do these specific things. There could be a whole bunch of undiscovered use cases, but they now have the types of tools they need to take that leap.
Yeah. So the simplest way to explain it is we become an essential part of their architecture from a data perspective. Now they can speak to the data, they can automate it using agents, they can use a system integrator to build personalized applications, or they can take a widget from this insight and integrate into an existing application. So what we are trying to do is make their existing infrastructure and forward-looking investments more profitable by being the essential data part of their architecture. And similarly, system integrator partners come in and do the same thing. So we also see not just what we are doing, but how do we bring the remaining partners in let's say APS's ecosystem in line with the strategy they have for business value, build by partner, and value realization.
And is that consistent with how you think about this, Michelle? And maybe a step further to how do you then think about implementing and scaling? Because it's great to demonstrate it, but like you got it a little bit before really scaling and getting into the hands of your colleagues.
And I know Karthik talked a lot about the solution, but I'll start with one thing we're very intentional about is we are looking this as more of a people and an enterprise transformation more than the technology itself, because we actually think that's critical to scaling it, that we have that buy-in, that knowledge, that understanding. And that's something we're very deliberate, especially because our AI office sits in IT. We want to keep reinforcing, look, this is not just a technology implementation. This is an organizational capability that we need to transform around. The second thing I would argue is, and we've been very deliberate about, which is one of the reasons we have the partnership with Bidgely, we were very intentional up front of we are an electric utility first and not a software development shop. Not that we don't do any custom development on our own, but we could tell when AI was really hitting the scenes, people were confused. So we focused on what we call a build versus buy strategy. We're going to be very clear when we want to build things on our own. They have a strategic advantage. There's not a solution out there in the industry that we need, versus we buy solutions that can augment our capabilities. And very much like Karthik mentioned, we've also looked at that architecture together and said, we don't want to be in the business of proliferating our data to 100 different partners. So how can we co-create where we get the intelligence of your model, Karthik talking about build disaggregation here, but use our centralized data platform. And we're embarking upon creative ways to, we as a utility can still secure, have a system of record, the lineage of our data, and feel confident that it's been secured, but still get the benefit of the creative solutions that companies like Bidgely have to offer. And so that was something we were also very deliberate on. So first, the people. Second, building and buying in the tech and making decisions around that and partnering with partners that can proliferate our strategy. And the third part, this is a little bit more inward. we realize that scaling comes when you can embed AI solutions as part of the core operational processes that already exist. So we were falling into that trap early on, like, let's build a widget, to Karthik's word, widget, a use case. If we don't work with the business teams, the operators, the call center agents, our linemen, guys in the field, and understand where these solutions fit in existing processes, that scaling starts to fall apart. And so this is a constant area. I'm not pretending we have perfected this, but we're very intentional about asking, where does this fit in the overall business process? Does it fit in? And will it be leveraged, or will it be something that sits over here on the side and sits on the shelf? That was from some early learnings. And now we're just very deliberate about making sure we understand where these new solutions fit in the current processes, because we feel that's where we start to get the teeth and the scaling and adoption that we're looking for.
And Karthik, what are some other leading practices for electric companies that are looking to get started, or what sort of things do they need to have prepared in-house to be successful?
I will talk in two ways on that. One is what level of preparation clarity is helpful to be provided to the ecosystem, and what kind of capabilities are good to be in-house and where to partner because of the scale of innovation happening. Setting the ground rules and the boundary conditions are important so that partners and vendors are able to innovate in a way which is most relevant to the utility. So in many utilities, sharing AMI data outside may not be a feasible thing, especially the larger one. And in that case, like, we are partnered with Amazon from an infrastructure standpoint, and we kind of bring to the table, okay, what is the best infrastructure solution where you can still get the best of agentic things which Amazon's doing or Snowflake's doing. So what's the best way to do that? And if a utility has already done all that work, it's helpful to kind of share, saying, we would like you to innovate within this space. We would, and from a business standpoint, our biggest focus, let's say interconnection and grid flexibility, or EV detection because of growth, or personalization to consumers, or rate design. So in broad sense, like, what are the larger business problems to solve? What are the constraints within which you should kind of deliver your solution? And how is success being determined, right? And utility industry is very good at doing this. You see mature parts of the RFPs, it's very well laid out in load shaping and load shifting, how this happens. Now, adapting it in a way where you're signaling outcomes, but being flexible about how partners can innovate. I think that would be a great step so that the ecosystem can support the transformation. The second thing I feel, and Michelle alluded to this a lot in the earlier part, is who needs to be engaged. Traditional roles are evolving. The role of the CIO is evolving. The role of business heads are evolving. And depending on the organization, you'll have different people holding this mandate of innovation, transformation, and change. But communicating that with your ecosystem is very powerful so that you are not bombarded with too many things coming at you from different places. It's everybody's responsible to deliver outcome and innovation, but in the early stages, there's one person shepherding the transformation through. I think that's important. And some utilities prefer to invest in data science, some utilities prefer to invest in, let's say, more hardcore utility specific capabilities. And it's also helpful to voice that out. Like, what would we like to keep in house? And if you are one of the providers, how can you partner with us in this journey? Or what you would prefer to outsource or procure, in which shape or form or solution or SaaS capability would you like to consume it? And this creates a very healthy dialogue of rapid investment progress and outcome, rather than every vendor trying to come at you and say how to do things. I think, and you see a lot of progress already happening on this front, and we see us stitching together partnerships to kind of have these conversations as well.
And Michelle, has there been anything throughout this process that you found to be surprising, or anything that might have changed in a way you weren't expecting?
I will say early on, and especially with all the media influence, there was a lot of discussion about how we were going to have so much employee fear about AI taking the employees' jobs. But more often than not, I find myself talking internally about our fear of not moving on it quickly enough, fear of being left behind, actually less around job elimination and more just, are we adopting this? Utilities often are considered fast followers and maybe in certain innovative areas. And I could definitely sense, when you talked about urgency earlier, a little bit of fear around, are we moving fast enough and quickly enough towards this, as being more of the predominant conversation now outside of jobs.
As you noted, there's a lot of discussions happening in the C-suite It's obviously heavily covered by the media, and I imagine in boardrooms as well. There really just are a lot of stakeholders trying to grapple with these emerging issues.
Absolutely. We're about ready to prepare for a board update on AI in December as well here at APS. But what I'll say, we've been very fortunate to have a ton of executive sponsorship at the CEO level at APS. We are treating AI here as what we call internally a corporate strategic initiative to elevate it and give it the credibility that it deserves. With that comes, the pressures of, are we moving fast enough? Are we staying in line with our peers? Are we, proliferating AI in the way that we need to solve and enable and support all of the challenges that we talked about in our industry? So it's an exciting time. Interest and excitement is exciting, but it also comes with delivery pressures. And we really want to make sure that we take our time, our resources, and really focus on the areas that can be a differentiator for our company and our customers.
And I know we've been talking a lot about innovative new technologies here, but it seems like there's a lot of innovation too, just for the way partnerships are coming together and the way people are working to develop solutions.
Here, I would just want to talk on the innovation which we are touching on as well. So we are known for our machine learning models over the last decade. We're taking those machine learning models, we are platformizing it, and we want this to be a data platform inside the architecture of Fidelity for security reasons, for flexibility reasons, for innovation reasons. And by doing this, we are democratizing access to our capabilities in AI and unlocking investments which a utility has already done in all the horizontal AI tooling and infrastructure capabilities. So we are proud of not just the technology innovation, but both the business model and the partnership innovation, which we are able to do with APS in this case.
Yeah, sometimes you hear it said as you want it baked in, not bolted on, just so it's really part of
Yeah.
that ecosystem.
It's part of the fabric. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, I think extending on the Starbucks analogy, so Utility AI has been a proprietary technology to deliver solutions across customers and grid. Utility AI Pro is how we are calling our platform to become an integral fabric with the utility. And that technology and business model innovation, we feel, is required by most partners in the industry for each capability they bring in to scale very rapidly across utilities in this market.
Well, it's been exciting to learn about some of these existing use cases, and really it's equally as exciting to see what comes next. Thank you both for spending some time with us today.
Thank you. We really appreciate the time today, and it was great connecting with you all.
Thank you. This is a very exciting time to be doing this in the utility space, and thanks for having us here.